Are you looking for a way to scale your short-term rental business and buy more properties? Well, co-hosting might be the right fit for you. Welcome to the Co-Host Coach podcast with Joe Roney. This episode of the Co-Host Coach is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents. If you're looking to buy a short-term rental, then contact the STR Savvy Agent team at savvy.realty.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Coach. I am Joe Roney, and today we are going to talk about short-term rental burnout. What does that mean and what it's all about? So, everybody who gets into this industry is 100% gung-ho, right? There's an amazing way for you to make money really fast, scale very fast, and build multi-six-figure businesses or even seven-figure businesses in a short period of time, which is amazing, right? And that's, you are very much like me. That's one of the reasons, one of the intriguing things about this business. And it's great and it's amazing, and the money's coming in, but at the same time, there's a whole lot of stuff on the back end that has to happen on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. And then you start to get guest complaints and you get to have guest issues. And then you come into what I call short-term rental burnout. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing people post about it in groups. I'm seeing people even in my mastermind that have talked about it. And so I wanted to talk about how to prevent that short-term rental burnout and what to do about it. Right? Because at the end of the day, if you are the CEO of your company and you're doing everything, you're going to get burnt out. It's going to happen. There is no possible way, no scenario that you're not going to. And there is a really great book. And if you have not read it, I highly recommend it. It's called The E-Myth. And there's an E-Myth for real estate agents. There's an E-Myth just in general, or the E-Myth Revisited. So very, 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 very good book with you being an owner, operator, or CEO of your company. Highly recommend it. But what are things that you can do today to prevent that burnout from going to 2026? So I'm going to tell you that this summer, I can't say I got to the burnout phase because I love what I do. I love the hospitality. I love talking to guests. I really, really enjoy this industry. And then on the second part of it, I love helping other people in this industry. When I say I eat, sleep, and breathe short-term rentals, I wake up thinking about and talking about short-term rentals. I go to bed thinking and talking about short-term rentals, and I sleep and dream about talking about short-term rentals. So if there's anyone that knows how you could easily get to burnout, it's me. I do it every day. But I truly, truly love it. That being said, we had to make some decisions this year as we're going into the off season to try to eliminate some of that burnout. And, so some of that burnout starts with number one is organization, right? Are you organized? So a lot of the things that people get burnout is because they didn't put those standard operating procedures in place. I'm guilty in from the first place, right? So when they do have a problem, they're scrambling, they're looking. So instead of it being a quick text or a quick phone call, it might turn into 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to fix something because they didn't have the right systems in place. Who am I calling for this? Who am I calling for that? So when you're getting into this business, you got to go through the what if scenarios. So when something happens, when the SHTF happens, what are you going to do about it, right? It's easy to get really upset. Second part is when you have guests that have difficult guests. I had one just this past week, and even the owner who still reads some of the messages, he called me and he's like, man, I don't know how you handle that. And it was a guest that was asking about every single thing. And it was just constant messaging for the entire 3-day stay. And then I have a guest next door in another property that didn't message me the whole time. But the one that messaged me 25 times, it was starting to get frustrating, right? And what can you do to prevent that and not have that kind of stuff happen? So that's another thing that happens in burnout. And then if you are, the biggest thing that the book E-Myth talks about is if you're wearing all the hats, right? You have, guest communication and revenue management and listing optimization and keeping track of KPI reports and going through and creating new listings and creating new content and posting on social media. And then on top of that, you're doing all your own bookkeeping, you're doing all your own invoicing. Like, that's a lot of hats to wear. And I've worn every single one of them in my business over the last 3 years in bits and pieces, sometimes all at once, sometimes not. And what I've learned mostly this year is that to prevent that short-term rental burnout, it was time to put some of that stuff onto other people. And I know we talked about hiring virtual assistants earlier this year, but a virtual assistant or an executive assistant is very much step number one, right? So, and I don't, if you only have 1 to 3 properties, I'm not saying you don't need a virtual assistant. I'm not saying don't hire them at all. They're not going to do as much for you at 3 properties as they are going to do for you when you get to 10 or more, right? So implement that virtual assistant as early as you can afford it, even if it's only 3 properties. I waited till I got to 10, which I waited a little bit too long for that, right? So, but that virtual assistant, and for me, is running my KPI reports, and she's doing my listing optimization. She's creating new listings. She's doing my guidebook. She's going through my market list. So many things that she's handling now. I don't even have to think about it. Now, do I need to go and follow up and check in and make sure everything's going good? Yes, but I'm not the one doing that, right? So step number 1, you're getting into this business. You've got to find somebody to be your right-hand person. And my spouse is definitely my right-hand person, and Jen is amazing and does so many great things in this business. But when you look at it and talk about what are your $10 tasks that you're focusing on that you shouldn't be, and those are tasks that you could hire somebody that could be really great. Okay, so virtual assistant, we've talked about virtual assistant until we're blue in the face. Highly recommend. I waited too long. I've told you that I've waited too long. Go do it today. Second thing that I see in short-term rental burnout, especially when you get to, 10 plus properties, is that guest communication. And of course, we all have our automated messages, right? So automated messages are going to prevent a lot of that. But the second part of that is AI. And we're implementing Host Buddy AI. I think I said it a few weeks ago. We're still in the process of making sure we have all of our SOPs and all of our information in place so Host Buddy AI can do the best possible job they can going into 2026. I don't need it today, October through December. We're fairly slow. I can handle the guest communication between now and the end of the year, but I don't want to be doing all the guest communication in March. I want to be able to have that Host Buddy AI or whatever AI you're using. OwnerRez has a new AI program. There's a few other ones. We just decided that's the one that we're going to use is Host Buddy. Had a lot of great reviews from other people and met with the owners and really impressed with their system. So second, like I said, second part of burnout is that guest communication. Now, that being said, Host Buddy AI is not going to fix it all, right? You are still going to have to, either you or your virtual assistant, be able to handle issues, right? Host Buddy AI is not going to call the HVAC technician, I'm going to say the word yet, to be able to schedule that service. Do I think that day is coming? Yes, I do. Which is why you want to get it in place now, because as these new implementations come in, you're going to be so automated down the road that you are going to be able to send messages directly from AI to your handyman, to your technicians, to your HVAC to go in there and take care of all that, right? Huge, huge win, right? Third thing that I see and I'm not going to call this short-term rental burnout, but I can see it's an area where when you get to 10 plus properties, you may have been a really great revenue manager with 5. You are not going to be a great revenue manager with 10. You're definitely not going to be a great revenue manager with 20 or 30 or 50 or however big you want to get. You have to scale that out and take it and give it to someone like, Jake Cohen at Step by Step or Emil Sakal at Pricing by Mira or one of these other revenue managers that are out there, because they are going to do a better job. And I thought I was doing a really great job at revenue management and we had really great results, but I handed everything off to Pricing by Mira about a month ago. I'm getting bookings in 2025 right now at $300 to $400 a night, more than I was even at. And it's the rule sets and the seasonality and the things that they have in place that are getting these night relates. I have 2 properties that I got $500 to $700 a night all spring break. I just got 4 bookings for $1,000 to $1,100 a night going into next year. And we haven't even had the new pricing strategy go into place just yet. So, so it's making a huge impact for me already, and I'm seeing it. And I have no doubt that it's going to make an impact going into 2026. I don't have the time to do the full service revenue management on every single property, to identify comps for every property, look at their pricing, go through and adjust my seasons, and do all that on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, because we just have too much on our plates. And when you get to 10 plus properties, a lot of times you're putting out fires. On top of that, you may have a W-2. For me, obviously, my W-2 is being a real estate agent and helping investors find great rentals to purchase. And that takes a lot of time. So on top of that, a coaching program and podcasts and doing different things. So it had to get pushed off to somewhere else. Now, how are you going to hire all these things out if you're only charging 20%? Guess what? 20% is still what you charge. You're just going to take some less profits. But if you go pick up one more property, you just paid for all of those things. You just paid for that revenue management. You just paid for that AI. No, you can't push these costs off to the owners. This is you managing their property, just like any property manager would. So you're going to have to eat some of these costs. And that's one of the mistakes I see when people get into this business. They say, oh my God, I'm going to get 20% revenue and it's great. But that doesn't mean you have zero costs. You are going to have some overhead. And we don't have a lot of overhead. If you think about, most businesses have anywhere from 50 to 70% overhead when it's all said and done. If you're adding payroll in and mortgage payments, supplies and rent and all those different things, we're able to charge our owners for a lot of that stuff, the supplies and things like that. So we don't have a ton of overhead. So it's okay to take some of your co-host money and actually say, I'm going to make my life easier. At the end of the day, are you growing a business that you want to work in all the time, or do you want to work on it? Right. So I'm trying to scale to the working on the business when I need to, where I'm not in it every single day. And that's the long-term goal. And that being said, I still want to provide that same level of service, that same level of revenue and services to the owners and customer service to the guest as we did before. So it's a, growing phase to get in there. But it's really, really important that we do that. And I have a guest coming on next week. And I really want you guys to tune in on this next one. My friend Mike Kitko, he's one of the greatest podcasters that I know, helps multi-millionaire business owners really get in the mindset and level up and put strategies in place. So he's got an in-person event coming in St. Louis the first weekend of November, November 11th, 12th, and 13th, I believe it is. So you definitely want to check out this episode with him. And if you can make that event, put it in there. I'll put the links to that in the comments of this one and the episode that comes in next week. So, short-term rental burnout is a real thing. And it's a real thing because we put too much on our plates. And if you're putting too much on your plate, you got to, number one, make sure you're charging enough. I see a lot of people that get in this industry, and I just had a conversation with the person recently, like, we can do everything that you can do, but we're only charging 10%. And I thought to myself, that is really hard. That is a really hard business if you're only charging 10%. Because in that 10%, you're having to pay for all these other things. And yeah, you might be fine in the beginning doing it all yourself, but when you go to scale, that 10% don't work very well. So there is no industry standard, right? 15 to 35% across the board, but we charge around 20%. Or plus or minus a little bit depending on the owner and how many properties we're managing for an owner, whatever it may be. But that is kind of what works for us. And you need to make sure that whatever you're charging works for you and your business so you can handle all these other things and prevent that short-term rental burnout. So make sure you tune in next week. In person, in studio guest, Mike Kitko is going to be here. Can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. And definitely check out his podcast, which is Inner Wealth Global. So We'll see you guys next week. Thanks.